Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I've been spending time this week with the 2017 G90 from Genesis. That would be Hyundai's new luxury brand, newly minted this year in fact. This is their top of the line flagship, the largest and most expensive car they offer. We're going to take it for a drive, let you get a good look at it, and I'm going to tell you what it's really like to live with. In talking about styling for the G90, let's get the big gorilla out of the room, and that is, it's a very familiar face, and that's because it's made by Hyundai. It has Hyundai's family DNA when it comes to this styling. It looks very much like a big giant Hyundai Elantra from up front, or maybe a Sonata, any one of the other models they offer. And while it's not a bad thing because it is quite handsome, it is something I do think they need to sort of separate here at some point if they really want to see Genesis as being looked at as a separate brand. But again, I really do think it's handsome as it is. A nice square jawline down there. You have a big Genesis wing logo there on the front. A lot of chrome down there that really does elevate the look, I think. Headlights on this, a very premium unit. You've got LED daytime running lamps. You've got high intensity discharge reflectors. They're a very nice light and they work excellent at night, I'll point out. And down there in the grille, you're also going to see something a little bit different. There's a big square shiny piece there, and what that is the radar unit for all the driving aids that this car has, and believe me, there's quite a few of them here. The wheel on this one, a 19-inch satin finish alloy wheel. It's a very pleasing wheel to look at, which is good because it is the single and only wheel that's available on this car at the moment. As we come down the side here, a couple elements that I want to point out is down here in the lower front fender, you can see it from this angle, there's a nice little crease that wraps up in there and gives it a little bit of visual relief to a side that's otherwise pretty straight line. Though some might look at that and say it is very similar to the BMW 7 Series. Also down here along the rocker, you've got some nice chrome that wraps all the way back here into the rear fascia. Back there, you've got big dual chrome exhaust tips, which really do finish that lower bumper pretty nicely. Also LED taillights here, which do have their own sort of look, although some again might look at that and say they look very similar to the Mercedes S-Class, at least a generation back. But overall, I do think they've got a nice distinctive look here, especially when we finish here at the roofline. It really sets it apart from the smaller Genesis G80 in that it's much more formal and squared off and fitting of a car that costs a little bit more. The interior of the G90 is lined with virtually every expectation you'd find in a luxury car of this class. You've got leather, you've got genuine wood, you've got genuine metals here and there, and a very high quality materials and switchgear. It's everywhere, and everywhere meaning this has literally every creature comfort known to man. So when you look around, it's a good thing that there's good materials and good switchgear because there's just a lot of it. I really do like the wood grain in here. I think it's a nice shade and a nice color against the black. Now there's two color combinations for this interior. There's also a beige leather interior that's black and tan, and it has a different color wood in it. I just like this one. I think black and nice burl wood's always just been something that goes with luxury cars for me. And it just has a nice pleasing look to it, I think. Now the open pore woods out there that have sort of a matte satin finish and a little bit of wood grain that you can feel, those are nice too. They haven't quite gone there here yet. Now to start with, when you're sitting here, you've got power heated ventilated leather seats up here. There's memory for both the driver and the passenger, pretty rare thing actually. And sitting here is actually quite comfortable. I've got a power tilt and telescoping steering wheel with paddle shifters on it. And everything's stored in the memory, of course, once you get set. And the seat has so many adjustments on it. It did take me a while just to learn how to use them. But now that I got there, very comfortable, wonderful place to be. And when you're sitting behind the wheel here, you've got reasonably good visibility and a big long hood out in front of you. I always like it when you can see a substantial hood out there, especially in a car like this. It just makes you feel like you can see what you bought, and it also gives you a secure feeling from behind the wheel. When it comes to storage, there's also quite a bit here. There's a cubby right here in the center console to set a phone in here vertically, and there's power ports down there as well as a USB and auxiliary. There's also down here cup holders built right in, hidden behind, genuine wood door right here. Storage here in the center console, it's actually pretty generous in here. I will say I really don't care for the clamshell opening situation here, but it is what it is. You just have to sort of raise your arms up out of the way. I guess the other way to do it, if it were a lid, it's just the popular thing for luxury cars now. What are you going to do? When it comes to ergonomic design, which is how easy are things to use, pretty good overall. The paddle shifters have a good feel to them. Switches here on the steering wheel, very well laid out, and they make sense. The one thing I would complain about is the toggle shifter here. To put it in park, you have to press a button that's actually over the front and behind the shifter here. And so not only can you not see it, you sort of have to look to see it. Reaching over there to get to it, it just could be maybe designed a little bit better. Now, your rear seat passengers are going to be very happy back here for quite a few reasons. And to start with, it's because there's tons of room, as you can see. Legroom back here, right up there with the S-Class and the BMW 7 Series. It is just completely huge, and that front seat over there can even be put forward a little bit further with some switches there on the side, and in another place I'll show you here in a moment. It allows you to really use this vehicle as a livery vehicle or to chauffeur people around and give them all the space they need over there. A lot of creature comforts back here. One nice thing, power sunshades on both sides, as well as right here on the back window. There's heated seats back here, but one more bonus is this. Look at this. Big control panel back here that has controls for your HVAC, your seats. It allows you to control that front seat right there, move it out of the way, but even better still, there's a full set of controls up here that duplicates what the driver has for the infotainment system. So you can completely control all of the entertainment back here as well as the HVAC. There's also storage back here just as much as there is up there. There's power ports back here, and of course vents. Vents on the back of the center console right there. And right here on the side pillars, also another set of vents. So your passengers back here, that's really what this car is about, is making sure they're just as comfortable and happy as you are up front. Like the back seat area, the trunk is also very generous. A lot of space back there, top of class when it comes to cargo space. And better yet, underneath that trunk is a spare tire, a real spare tire. And that's a good thing because it's nice when you have a big car like this, especially if you're taking people around. If something does happen, you don't want to be dealing with one of those emergency inflators. A spare tire is a must, and to me it's expected in this price range. Overall, I'm obviously very pleased with this interior. It's every bit as good as the Lexus LS, at least the last generation. I haven't sat in the new one. It's as good or better than some of the German cars, and I'm not going to specify brands, but they've just done a good job with not only creating a nice design that's credibly high-end luxury, but it has the feel, it has the quality as well. So the interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system in this car starts with a very large screen, 12.3-inch widescreen here on the dash, which lets you have your nav screen and your radio information, among other things, placed side by side. Or you can choose to fill the entire screen with the nav map, as you can see here. Full screen nav, and then you can always go back later and put the radio back there where you can see the whole thing. Now, what I like about it is the fact that it's just got a nice clean look and it works very well. There's a control puck down here on the center console that allows you to navigate, as well as on the menus when you're using the radio, audio, and other types of functions. You've got a home screen here, which allows you to do pretty much everything that you need to do, including hooking your phone up and using the BlueLink apps. Now, this does have Apple CarPlay, it does have Android Auto functionality, and pretty much all the features that you're going to expect today out there. This control puck and using it actually works pretty good once you get used to it. There is a little bit of a learning curve here, and the audio from the Lexicon audio system is quite good. And the last thing here is the 360-degree backup camera on this, very good. Allowed me to back this big, huge car into a tight covered parking space in my office. One shot every time, being able to see everything around it and what's back there. So the infotainment system in this car gets 5 out of 5 stars. What we've got under the hood here is an all-new engine for Genesis from Hyundai, obviously, a 3.3-liter twin turbocharged V6. It's the standard engine in this car. You can also option a 5-liter V8. This has 365 horsepower and 376 pound-feet of torque. I'll point out that that torque is just a little bit less than the V8, even though it does have quite a bit more horsepower. Torque's what you really feel in a big car like this. Now, it's mated here to an 8-speed automatic transmission. It has all-wheel drive on this particular car. You can get it with just rear-wheel drive. So this engine in this car, as it's tested, is rated at 17 mpg city, 24 mpg highway, and 20 mpg combined. There's also drive modes here: sport mode, eco mode, smart mode, which is a combination of things, and then you got individual, where you can set the different metrics for all the different ways it changes things in your own way. So the question always is, how does it go? Woo! Nice little push in the back there. Woof. It can go. So believe me, if you're thinking V6 or V8, nobody's going to be disappointed here. This has plenty of power, very little if any turbo lag, and that's because those turbochargers are very small. They spool up very quickly and they just really throw off the power like that. And it's a very smooth and refined V6. It doesn't make a lot of sound, as you heard. It's just a nice thrum of sound, and it really does put a nice push in your back. Now there's paddle shifters here, and that allows you of course to shift manually, because down here this shifter doesn't have a manual shift gate. It's just drive and reverse and park. So if you want to shift manually, you can use them, and you know, they work like most paddle shifters with automatics do, which is to say they only work if the computer wants to let the engine shift or it's ready to. So they're toys. That's what they are. I really do like this powertrain though. This engine, again, I've driven the V8 in this car, although we're not testing it today, and I'd be more than happy with this because it's got plenty of sportiness to it when you want the power, but when you're driving it around town, it's got a very quiet demeanor. It's peaceful, it's refined, it's everything you'd expect in this class. And when you do rev it out, again, refinement is what comes across, along with that extra power. Now, fuel economy, it's rated, as I said, 20 mpg combined. In my week with it, I almost got it, just about 19.5, and that was a combination of city and highway driving. So I'm very, very impressed with this powertrain. It gets 5 out of 5 stars. The way this rides and handles is what you'd expect of a full-size luxury car, and that is, it's very quiet out on the highway around town. It's got a very hushed, quiet, smooth, and solid ride. Now, the suspension is very much tuned like a luxury car. If you've got it in sport mode, it becomes a little bit stiffer. If you have it in eco mode, or if you've got it in smart mode, it tends to be very soft and even has a little bit of float to it. Not a terrible thing in a car like this. If you get into a Lexus or a Mercedes-Benz, you're going to find those attributes as well. But that really is befitting a car like this. When you're driving it around town, it's just got a nice, quiet, unobtrusive ride. And if you do want that sportiness, well, then you can have it, and then you can go to individual mode and set the suspension to be stiff if you want, well, then dialing back other metrics like the engine and how it behaves, or you can do it vice versa. The steering on this has a nice, precise feel, and this chassis, 5-link front suspension, 5-link rear suspension, it has the goods. It has the goods and the solid structure, which Genesis says is actually quite a bit stiffer than that of BMW and Mercedes-Benz's structures. And what that translates to is a very solid feeling car, and it feels heavy for obvious reasons. It is. So summing up the chassis on this car, I really do think that it is very much in keeping with what you'd expect from Cadillac, Lexus, even Mercedes-Benz. BMW tends to be a little bit more on the sporting side, but how it feels, does it feel the price, we're right up there with those guys. 5 out of 5 stars. On the topic of quality, very important in this class, especially when you're spending this much money. And some might ask, gee, it's made in Korea. Is it as good as the German cars or the ones from Japan? I would simply say yes. The paint finish here is absolutely flawless. Body panel fit and finish, very good. And the materials inside and out, very much top of class, if not better than a couple of those out there. So quality comes in at 5 out of 5 stars. On the topic of safety, this car's had its complete checkup and physical with the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety, which gave it a top safety pick plus honor, and that's because it got good in all of their tests, including the new headlight test, which has been the leveler for a lot of cars, but here we're good across the board. All right, my friends, wrapping it up for the Genesis G90. I really do think they've put together a credible luxury car here, and one that's every bit worth the price tag we're looking at here, $71,500. This is the V6 premium all-wheel drive, so you can get it for slightly less and you can spend slightly more. But here's the thing, this is a mono-spec type of car, which means it comes one way. You choose your colors inside and out. That's it. Not a lot of option packages, not a lot of standalone options, so you get everything for this price. And you cannot say that for any of the competitors. Not Mercedes, not BMW. They really stack on the options. Lexus certainly does. And if you go for the Americans, Lincoln, or if you go for Cadillac, same deal there. You're going to really spend money on the options where you get everything for this price, period. So I do think we're at a good value here, 5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 5 stars for the review. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. You know, a little over a year ago, when Hyundai actually announced that they were going to create the Genesis luxury brand, I couldn't have agreed more, because they've been building luxury cars for some time. The Equus, the previous Genesis sedan, and they're just good cars that are befitting, and they deserve to have their own brand, because while Hyundai isn't a bad brand, a lot of people just didn't understand the concept of a $70,000 luxury car sitting on the same showroom floor right next to a $15,000 Hyundai Accent. So it just made sense at some point to split them off, just like Toyota did with Lexus, just like Nissan did with Infiniti. So here we are today. We've got the newly minted Genesis brand. I think they're off to a good start. I think these are credible cars, both the two cars they offer, and they've told us there's more to come, an SUV, other cars. So I think there's a bright future ahead for Genesis. Anyway, if you like the test drive you just saw, I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do this every week, 1 or 2 cars, and you can do that by clicking on the big round logo right there. You can also see our latest test drive by clicking on the big square right there. Either way, stay tuned.